We recommend this product be installed by a competent gunsmith.
Modification of your firearm may nullify the warranty of the firearm's manufacturer.
No liability is expressed or implied for damage or injury which may occur from improper use or installation of this product.
You are responsible for the safe handling, legalities, and use of your firearm.
Warning: always wear safety glasses when working on firearms.
Hey, Randy Lee here, and today I'd like to walk you through the use of our newly developed 1911 ejector fixture. I designed this particular fixture for the amateur or the professional, so whether you're in the field and you don't have power tools, or you're in a professional shop where you have access to a mill, this will hold and locate precisely the ejector relative to the frame so that you can align and then drill the hole perfectly without damaging the frame. For you 1911 builders, you can use this on a standard 1911 frame or an STI type 2011 frame. So in this video, I'm going to cover two methods on how to use our fixture. One will be using the file and punch method, and the other will be using the drill method. So let's get started. The tools you'll need for this installation are the ejector pin fixture, some sort of marking pen to be able to identify where to locate the notch for your ejector pin, a small scribe to mark the location while the ejector's in the frame, a new Starrett pin punch. In this case, it's a 1/16 inch diameter, which is ideal for a standard traditional 1911 frame, a small needle file that's required to remove excess material once you locate where the notch needs to be cut in the front leg of the ejector, a 1/16 inch hex driver to secure and locate the pins or the screws in the ejector pin fixture, the ejector that's appropriate for the caliber that you're using, and then the ejector pin that's specific for the particular frame, whether it's a 2011 or a 1911 frame. Be aware that different manufacturers may use different diameter pins, so identify what diameter pin or hole is in your frame before you start any modifications. Now, if you're going to use a drill for this particular process, I recommend using the left-hand twist drills that are available from Dawson Precision. They make it both in the 3/32 diameter and the 1/16 inch. The 3/32 is appropriate for the STI double stack frames. The 1/16 inch is standard for military spec 1911s. Okay, the first thing I want to do is mark the location on the front leg of the ejector for the exact position where the notch needs to go. So I'm using the Sharpie to mark in a different color so that when I do the scribe marks, it'll show up more clearly. From there, I'm going to install the ejector into the frame and just make sure that it's down as far as it can go. Now I can use the fixture to come over the top, and then I can lock the screws down. Now it only has to be finger tight. The brass tips on these will hold it in place without damaging either the ejector or the frame. And the two screws that I'm tightening down right now will lock down the ejector onto the frame in the precise location. Okay, now the ejector is in location, in the proper position. So now I'm going to come in with a scribe, and I'm just going to come and mark the surface. So if you notice, there's a cutout in our fixture, and that'll allow me to come in and just mark the area. I'm trying to make a generous scribe across the surface because I want to remove the excess material, and I'll be doing that with a small needle file. Okay, once that's done, I can remove the fixture. And then remove the ejector. Now I might need to use something to just break it loose. From the frame. And since it's being stubborn, I'm gonna use a piece of nylon through the magazine well just to tap it loose. Okay, now that it's free, I can remove the frame from the vise. And I'm going to set this up so that you can see where the scribe mark was. And this is the exact position where I need to cut that notch. You can just barely see the outline because of the reflection from the cameras and the lighting. There's a small circular scribe in this location, and that's the exact position of where I need to cut my notch. So I'm going to use a small file, and I'm going to actually remove excess material so that when I do the punch method, that there's less material to have to try to knock out. All right, now I'm using my small needle file, and I'm coming across that surface. Because the hole in the frame goes laterally across, I'm coming straight from the top, and I'm just removing that material in the location where the scribe was. With this method, typically, once you see the scribe marks, if your file ends up going below the surface of where you scribed, come back and relocate the notch just slightly higher. And the reason I say that is because it's better to be just slightly higher on the column here, because if you're low, what that'll do is when you do mark and not cut the notch, it will tend to want to loosen and lift the ejector out of the location once you're inserting the pin. Okay, so that's all the material that's required to remove. And now we can go into the actual installation by knocking out the excess material using the punch method. So I removed the frame from the vise just for a point of clarification. Using the Starrett pin punch, I'm going to go in from the right side to the left, and I'm going to use the frame as a pilot for the next steps. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a hammer, a small light hammer, and I'm going to tap the punch and rotate. Tap, rotate, tap, rotate. I'm going to do that back in the vise, but I wanted to show you exactly the method. And the reason why it's important to use a clean new punch is because I want to use it as a cookie cutter to give me a precise notch rather than deflecting and possibly damaging the frame on the opposite side. Now in the field, you may not have a vise available, so a flat surface, any flat type of surface will work. But since I have a vise available to me, I'm going to use that. Now what I'm going to do is use my little hammer, and I'm going to do that punch, rotate, punch, rotate. And from this perspective, you should start to see a slug of material start to move out. So I'm tapping, I'm rotating the punch, I'm tapping, rotating. So you should be able to see something just starting to come into view. Okay. So it appears that I've come through on the opposite side and my hole alignment. And when I cut it in the vise or use the file, I cleared out a good amount of the material because that is now a perfectly aligned hole. The beauty of this type of technique is that you don't require power tools and there's less chance of damaging the frame, especially if you try using the drill method without a fixture and you're using a dull drill. So now I can install the pin for the final securing of the ejector. So I just placed my pin in, and there's two different types of pins. There's a solid pin and a roll pin. Depending on the manufacturer, some will use roll pins, others will use solid pins, but I'm used to military spec, which requires a solid pin. And what I'm using now is I'm using the 3/32 inch punch just to be able to knock the pin into its final location. And you should be able to see it just coming out. So the idea and the preference is that since I can only see it from the opposite perspective, I need to drive that pin back to where it's flush with the frame. Now with the ejector pin in its final seated position, I can loosen the set screws and remove the fixture. And that's how you do the installation using the punch method. So I've installed the ejector and locked down the ejector with our fixture because I'm going to use the drill method now. The nice thing about this fixture is that it locks the ejector relative to the frame, so there's no chance of it lifting when we're using a drill. I still recommend using a left-hand twist drill because that is going to bite into the leg and actually help pull the ejector down against the frame. There's less chance of it walking and deflecting and causing damage on the interior hole of the frame. Because this is an STI frame that I'm going to be installing the ejector in, I'm using a 3/32 inch left-hand twist drill. And the reason I'm doing that is because the left-hand twist will tend to want to suck the ejector down against the frame rather than trying to lift it. Now the beauty of the fixture is that even if you were only using a right-hand twist, it still would prevent it from lifting. But because this is a customer's gun, I want to make sure that it's perfect. So now that I've drilled the frame and located the notch in the ejector, installing the pin is the same as any other 1911. The other advantage to having this fixture is that it acts as a buffer and it prevents damage to the frame if you're using a hand drill, and it prevents that surface from impacting your frame and potentially marring it. The 1911 ejector fixture is intended for the 1911 professional and not necessarily for the beginner this is their first time build. If you are one of those professionals or a custom gunsmith, it becomes a wonderful tool to keep in your toolbox, whether you're in the shop or in the field. If you have any questions about this product or any other Apex product, please feel free to contact customer service at Apex Tactical.